ఇక్కడ విండో ఏం కనిపించదా మనకు? ఇక్కడ లేదు కదా? ఓకే. Good morning everyone. I am Dr. Renuka from the Department of Physiology. Okay, today the topic is body fluids. So what do you understand by body fluids? The water along with the dissolved solutes in the whole of the body constitute the body fluids. That is the water plus your dissolved solutes in the water constitute the body fluids. In the whole of the body constitute the body fluids. So body fluids in a average young adult male, supposing he weighs about 70 kilos. So average young adult male who is weighing about 70 kilos, his water is about 60%. 60% of his weight is the water. And protein and related substances is 18%, fat is about 15%, minerals are about 7%, and look at the composition of water. Water is about 60%. So you can say a 70 kilos person will have 60% of body water. Means what is this total body water? 70 into 60. That is 42 liters of your total body water. 42 liters is your total body water. And when it comes to females, the body water is 10% less compared to males because females have more subcutaneous fat or adipose tissue. So females will have about 50% of their body weight is their water. Okay. Then infants, so newborns and infants will have more amount of water. It could be up to 75% also. Okay. Next slide. What are the body fluids? So body fluids, we can divide them into two fluids, extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid is the one which surrounds all the cells. It is outside the cells. And 1/3 of the volume of fluids in body, if your 60% means 60% of body water means it is equivalent to 100%. So in that 33% is extracellular fluid. 33%, 1/3 of the fluids is extracellular fluid. So what does this extracellular fluid contain? It contains ions, nutrients needed for your cellular life. So this extracellular fluid is also the internal environment or the melee interior. It was told to you, I think, in homeostasis, that will form the immediate environment for any cell. So internal environment of the cell is this extracellular fluid. That is why blood is also called as internal environment, because blood is part of ECF. I mean plasma. Plasma is also part of ECF. So this internal environment means it will maintain the in relation to your pH, composition, concentration, temperature, all that is regulated within normal limits. When the body limits change a little bit, physiologically it will bring back to its normal levels. That is called homeostasis. So intracellular fluid is the fluid inside the cells. Inside the cells is the intracellular fluid. They constitute 2/3 volume of fluids in the body. That is 67% of total body water. Intracellular fluid is double the amount of the extracellular fluid. That you should remember. Extracellular fluid is 33% of total body water. Intracellular fluid is 67% of total body water. So extracellular fluid, we can divide that into, so now we have understood two types of fluids are there. The fluid inside the cell is intracellular fluid and the fluid outside the cells is extracellular fluid. So the extracellular fluid is 1/3, intracellular fluid is 2/3. Look, now this is the cell, the fluid inside the cell is intracellular fluid. The fluid outside the cell is extracellular fluid. And what does it include? It includes your interstitial fluid. The blue one is all interstitial fluid, and the fluid surrounding the blood cells. In the blood vessels, your RBC, WBC, platelets are flowing. That is also based in a fluid called plasma. So plasma also is part of the extracellular fluid. Interstitial fluid, we can divide the extracellular fluid into three divisions. One is the interstitial fluid, one is the plasma, and other one is the transcellular fluid. It forms a very minor percentage. So a lot of people talk only about these two. Okay, now, so fluid compartment, I said fluid is 60% of our body weight is the fluid compartment. So extracellular fluid is 1/3, that is 33% of our total body water is extracellular fluid. Intracellular fluid is 2/3, that is 67% of total body water. But when you look at the body weight, I said 60% of the body weight is the fluid compartment. So extracellular fluid constitutes about 20% of the body weight. Intracellular fluid constitutes about 40% of the body weight. That is in relation to the body weight. 20% is extracellular, 40% is your intracellular fluid. Okay, so extracellular fluid can be divided into three compartments. One is plasma, the other one is the interstitial fluid, the third one is the transcellular fluid. So plasma is the fluid that is present in your vascular system surrounding your blood cells is plasma. That will constitute about 25% of ECF. 25% of the ECF is plasma. This is the fluid surrounding the blood cells is plasma. And if you look at the body weight, it is 5% of the body weight. Then comes the interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid is the fluid surrounding all the cells in the body except the blood cells. Except the blood cells, because blood cells are in your vascular system. So except the blood cells, all other cells surrounded by the fluid is the interstitial fluid. It is a major component of this ECF, and interstitial fluid includes your lymph also. Lymph is another topic that includes your lymph also. Whatever fluid is in this interstitial spaces is your interstitial fluid. That constitute about 75% of the ECF or 15% of body weight. 15% of your body weight. And the other component is the transcellular fluid. Where is this fluid present? It is present in the lumen of structures lined by epithelium. It is present in the lumen of the structures lined by epithelium, like a cerebrospinal fluid. Intraocular fluid. Intraocular fluid means again vitreous humor and aqueous humor. Pleural fluid surrounding your lungs. Peritoneal fluid in your GIT, peritoneal fluid. Pericardial fluid around your heart, synovial fluid in your joint spaces, digestive secretions, and also cochlear fluid, the fluid which is present in your ear, cochlear fluid. Any other fluid? Cochlear fluid, your bile also is one of the component of your transcellular fluid. So plasma will constitute about 25%. Interstitial fluid plus transcellular fluid is about 75% of the ECF. And in this transcellular fluid, I can say it is only hardly, this is about 15% of your body weight, means probably that could be probably 1%, 1.5%. It is not more than that. These two together constitute the interstitial fluid, and transcellular fluid is about 75% of the ECF, and transcellular fluid is hardly anything. Okay, sometimes that's why they don't even mention that. Coming to the next slide. Example. This I told in the beginning itself, how to calculate the total body water. Calculate the total body water for a 70 kg man. So total body water is 60% of his body weight. So total body water will be 60% into 70 is 42 liters of water. Okay. If the person is about 60 kilos, that will be 60 into 60, 36 liters of water. So average man, we have taken an average young adult male who is about 70 kilos, his body water will be 42 liters of water. If it is 42 liters of water, extracellular fluid is 1/3. Intracellular fluid is 2/3. So if 42 liters, 1/3 will be 14 liters. 42 into 1/3. Yeah. 14 liters will be your extracellular fluid. 28 liters will be your intracellular fluid. Double the amount of this will be your extracellular fluid, intracellular fluid. Next, what are the differences between ECF and ICF? Here, the important anions and cations you should remember is ECF, sodium content, chloride is very much more in the ECF. You look at ECF, sodium is 142. Whereas in ICF, look at the sodium, it's only 14. Whereas chloride is 108 in the ECF and 4 in the ICF. And bicarbonates are also more in the ECF, they are about 24, whereas in ICF it is 10. So whenever you should remember this sodium and chloride. Next comes the bicarbonates are more in the ECF, whereas ICF will have potassium, magnesium and the phosphate ions. Potassium, you should always remember, inside the cell potassium is more, outside the cell sodium is more. So sodium, chloride and bicarbonates are more in the ECF, whereas ICF will have potassium, magnesium and phosphate ions. And also ICF will have large amount of proteins, high concentration of proteins. So this is the major difference between the ECF and the ICF. ECF means what it should come as sodium, chloride and bicarbonates are more in the ECF compared to the ICF, whereas potassium, magnesium and phosphate ions are more with high concentration of proteins inside the ICF. So ECF function is, what nutrients does it have? It has oxygen, glucose, fatty acids and amino acids. And what are the wastes in the ECF? Carbon dioxide, urea, uric acid, excess water and the ions. These are the wastes. Whereas ICF will have high concentration of proteins. So this slide I am emphasizing because you should know the ECF will have sodium, chloride and bicarbonates more, whereas ICF will have potassium, magnesium and phosphate ions and proteins also. So composition of body fluids. So body fluids are there in the plasma, interstitial and intracellular fluid. So as I told you, look at sodium and potassium. Sodium and potassium are more because this interstitial fluid is always constant in motion. It goes into the vascular compartment very easily. So almost they are similar, interstitial and plasma. So look at this sodium content in plasma and interstitium. It is that, and whereas intracellular sodium, look at the intracellular sodium. Potassium is much more in the intracellular fluid. Okay, then calcium are almost the same, and magnesium, look at magnesium, it is more in the intracellular fluid. And anions, as I told you, bicarbonates and chlorides are more in these first two compartments, plasma and interstitial, whereas protein is much more in the intracellular fluid. Look at 1.2, 0.2, whereas intracellular has got 4. And also the phosphate ions. Phosphate ions are also much more in the intracellular fluid. And here what I want to tell you is the sum of the concentrations of the anions will equal to the sum of the concentrations of the cations in that particular compartment. Look at plasma. Plasma total cations is 162.7. Anions also it is 162.7. Interstitial fluid it is 153.9 and anions is also 153.9. Intracellular fluid it is about 200 anions and cations. So the sum of the concentration of the anions in that particular compartment is equal to sum of the cations of the same compartment, because this is very important, because the fluid electrically it should remain neutral. So the components is equal of that particular compartment. What is the importance of maintaining ECF volume? ECF volume is very important because of maintaining the blood pressure. If ECF volume is low, your blood pressure will be low. Okay, so ECF volume is very essential because it is the vascular compartment, because fluid from the ECF will be flowing into your vascular tree also. So this is the one which is very important in maintaining the blood pressure. This is the fluid which will maintain your cardiac output. So blood pressure is dependent upon your cardiac output. So this volume is very important to maintain the blood pressure. When this volume is very high, your BP will be very high. Okay, so this is very important for maintaining the blood pressure. So ECF osmolarity is of primary importance in long-term regulation of ECF volume, particularly your sodium and chloride. ECF osmolarity is mainly maintained by sodium chloride balance. So sodium chloride is more, I said, in the ECF, and that is very important in regulation of your ECF volume, because when this ECF volume is low, when this is falling, what will our body do? You will know about it later. The renin is produced from the kidneys, that will convert into renin, angiotensinogen, angiotensin, aldosterone. So, and it will try to reabsorb the water from the kidneys. So, whenever the volume is low, this renin, angiotensin, aldosterone mechanism will come into play. So, the main idea is to maintain the volume, ECF volume. This you will know in later classes. So, ECF osmolarity is of primary importance in long-term regulation of ECF volume, and that is mainly maintained by the sodium chloride balance. Intake of the sodium chloride is 10.5 grams per deciliter. Output is 10 grams per deciliter in urine. Some will be evaporated by sweat. So, altogether intake and output will be almost the same. So that is ECF is very important because of osmolarity of sodium chloride. That is one point you should remember, and this fluid is very essential for maintaining the blood pressure. Volume of blood fluids is 70 kgs man. So 70 kgs man, the total body water will be 42 liters. Intracellular, I told you, 2/3 means 28 liters. Extracellular fluid will be 1/3, that is 14 liters. Again, this extracellular fluid, I told you, is divided into 3 compartments: plasma, interstitial fluid, and the transcellular fluid. This plasma will be roughly 25% of this extracellular fluid. 75% I told you are other two. So, roughly means about 3.5 liters. 23.54 liters, okay, 1/4 of the ECF, 25%, 14 liters divided 25% is 3.5 liters is the plasma. Plasma is the fluid which is surrounding your blood cells. Next. So now we want to measure how much amount of body fluids are there. So what is the method we use? It is called dye dilution technique. That is an indirect method. I want to know how much my ECF is, how much my plasma volume is. So how do I measure that? The method of measuring it is called dye dilution technique. Indicator, the indicator we are using, that we are using some dye in it, and we are knowing how much the dye is going around, and it is mixing with the fluid. So what is the principle? Have to select a suitable dye or a radioisotope. Suitable dye or a radio. What is principle for this dye dilution is we should have a suitable dye or a radioisotope. Radioisotopes are much easier because it is easier to counting this radioisotopes. It's easier to count these radioisotopes by suitable radiation detectors. A suitable technique like radiation detectors will be there. It will emit some light. They count it and it will exactly show how much of fluid in each compartment is. So compared to dyes, radioisotopes are preferred. So I have to select a suitable dye or a radioisotope, and we should know we should calculate the volume of fluid. We want to know the volume of the fluid. So, if you want to know the volume of the fluid, we should know if whatever amount of dye, supposing I am injecting a dye. So, suppose I have injected about 35 milligrams of dye, you think. So that dye, and after it is mixing with the fluid, after some time I am taking out some 1 ml of blood from the IV. So if supposing that 1 ml of blood will have 0.07 milligrams of the dye, you think. Okay. So if 1 ml will have that much, 35 total dye I have used is 35 milligrams. So 35 milligrams would have spread into how many ml? So 35 by 0.007, that is about 500 ml. That is how you calculate the volume. So concentration of the dye we should know. So in 1 ml how much dye was there? So the total dye I have given will spread into how much volume of water. So concentration formula is equal to volume. If I have to know the volume, A minus E. Sometimes this amount of the dye can be excreted or lost. Either it can get metabolized or it will get excreted in the urine. So I should know the exact amount, how much of the dye has come out of the urine or it has got metabolized. Such dyes only are used where we can calculate how much is excreted also. So V is equal to A minus E by C. C is the concentration. So we take out about 1 ml of blood and see how much concentration is there in that 1 ml. So total dye I have injected is supposing about 35 milligrams. So in the 35 milligrams would have gone into how much volume? That is how we calculate the volume. If the volume, if the amount is not going or getting excreted, V is equal to A by C. V is equal to A by C. If it is not, if you think that is not getting excreted or not metabolized, such a type of dye is used which is not getting excreted or metabolized. If it's staying in the same compartment, then we will say V is equal to A by C. But if the dye is getting excreted or lost, V is equal to A minus E by C. A is the amount of dye used. E is how much it is getting excreted or lost. C is the concentration of that substance. So volume measurements of various fluid compartments. So interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid means you should know your, if you want to measure the interstitial fluid, you should know your ECF. ECF minus plasma volume will be interstitial fluid, because plasma volume plus interstitial fluid will give you ECF. So if you want to know the interstitial fluid, ECF minus plasma volume will give you the interstitial fluid. If you want to know the intracellular fluid, total body water minus ECF will give you the intracellular fluid, because ECF and ICF is the total body water. So if intracellular fluid is very difficult to measure. So we can't measure intracellular fluid because the fluid in that particular does not stay there. It will keep moving. So it is very difficult to measure the intracellular fluid. So how will you get intracellular fluid? First you should know total body water. Then minus extracellular fluid will give you the intracellular fluid. What are the criteria for suitable dye? So suitable dye must mix evenly throughout the compartment. It should go and mix evenly throughout the compartment. It should be non-toxic. It should have no effect of its own on the distribution of water or other substances in the body. It should have no effect. It should neither get absorbed nor secreted. Okay. So it should have no effect of its own on the distribution of water or other substances in the body. Either it must be unchanged. It should not change. Even if it is changing, we should know the amount how much it has changed. So either it must be unchanged during the experiment, or if it is changing, we should know the amount changed must be known. The material should be relatively easy to measure. So isotopes are very easy to measure. So usually those are preferred over the dyes. So these are the criteria for a suitable dye. So volume measurement of various fluid compartments is dye dilution principle. Total body water. So for total body water, these are the substances used: deuterium oxide, tritillated water, antipyrine or aminopyrine. These are the substances that are used to measure the total body water. So volume measurement of various fluid compartments. If you want to measure the extracellular fluid, what are the substances one should use? Two major types. Saccharides like sucrose, inulin, mannitol. These are the saccharides. Sucrose, inulin and mannitol. Inulin is the preferred one. Okay. Or diffusible ion, sulfate, sodium, thiosulfate, bromide, chloride. So these are suitable for the measurement of those compartments. So these are the substances we are using to measure the extracellular fluid. So volume measurement of various fluid compartments. If you want to measure the blood plasma, Evans blue is the preferred type, because this Evans blue will go and get itself attached to your plasma proteins. So Evans blue or radioactive labeled 125 iodine albumin. This is the Evans blue is the type. If you have to use the radioactive isotope, the preferred one is 125 iodine albumin. So how do you calculate the plasma volume? Plasma volume is equal to blood volume into 100 minus hematocrit by 100. Hematocrit is nothing but all your cells. So usually 45% are the cells and 55% is the plasma. So hematocrit is hematocrit is majorly because of your RBC volume, that is RBC volume. So blood volume into 100 minus hematocrit by 100 is your plasma volume. That is how you get your plasma volume. Hematocrit is all the settled cells. So hematocrit will be 45%, whereas the plasma is 55%. What are the factors that are affecting the total body water? So, some physiological factors. Adipose tissue. The more amount of adipose tissue is there, that means the water is less. So, in females, adipose tissue is more. That is why total body water in females is less. Sex. Females, it is less than that of males. Age. Age is for infants, total body water is much more. As they are growing, as they are becoming elder, the total body water will decrease. And pathological conditions is dehydration and overhydration. Dehydration means, whenever we say dehydration, means lot of extracellular fluid has gone out. Overhydration means either by taking the saline, lot of extracellular fluid has been added, mainly extracellular fluid. And the ratio between ECF and ICF, I said in adults it is ECF is 1:2, whereas in children ECF is less. It is 1:2.5 or 3. That is why when the ECF, by vomiting or diarrhea, if ECF is lost, children will get affected first. So, because their ICF is much more compared to ECF. So, the ratio between ECF and ICF is more in children compared to adults. Dehydration, I told you, dehydration means either when the fluid is going out, diarrhea, hemorrhage, some accident has happened, vomitings, all this will lead to dehydration. Overhydration means we are keeping lot of normal saline, or sometimes because a lot of fluid is there and ADH is not acting properly, anti-diuretic hormone is not acting properly, so lot of fluid will be there. So this is overhydration. Next is percentage of water in the body. So look at fetus. Fetus has got 100% water. Baby at birth will have 80% water. Adult male, I think it is not 70%, it should be 60. For 70 kg adult, it is 60%. As we are getting old, 50% of water is there. So, water content is getting reduced as we age. What is dehydration? Loss of water from the body. Example, vomiting, diarrhea, sweating, lot of urea is lost, polyuria. In diabetes, lot of urine is lost, polyuria. So this will decrease both your ECF and ICF volumes, because they are always in the constant motion, all these volumes, okay. So ECF and ICF volumes are reduced. So when these are reduced, osmolarity, ions will increase. When the fluid is reduced, osmolarity of these ions will increase. So ECF and ICF osmolarity will increase. So when that increases, what are the signs of dehydration? Dry tongue, loss of skin elasticity, soft eyeball due to lowering of intraocular tension. Blood pressure will drop. I told you, as there is less of fluid, your blood pressure will drop. So if the fluid is more than 4 to 6 liters lost, the blood pressure will drop. So, and when the plasma is also dropping, the your blood cells will increase. Packed cell volume will increase. If the fluid is less, if the plasma is less, the fluid cell content will increase. When RBCs are more, your HB will be also more. So, hemoglobin and hematocrit will be more. So, how do you treat these patients? Treat with fluid replacement. Either give them orally. That's why they are asked either to drink glucose water or nariyal pani. So orally, or give them IV. IV is you can give them normal saline. Normal saline is preferred over 5% dextrose. Normal saline is given to them. What is disorders? Why the water will get accumulated in the interstitial spaces? Atypical accumulation of fluid in the interstitial spaces leading to tissue swelling. So what are the factors that will accelerate the water into the spaces? Whenever there is increased blood pressure, you think lot of water is there. The pressure in the vessels is more. So whenever the blood pressure is more, what will happen? Hydrostatic pressure is also increases when more the fluid. When hydrostatic pressure is more, it will be filtering the fluid from your blood vessels. So increased blood pressure, capillary permeability. Supposing capillary permeability means supposing there is inflammation or there is severe anemia. So capillaries will give way for the fluid to come and settle in the interstitial spaces, or hypoxia, anoxia. All this capillary permeability, and from the capillaries the fluid will come and settle down the interstitial spaces. And incompetent venous valves. When the venous valves are not functioning properly, the fluid is not able to, from the veins, the fluid is not able to come towards the heart. So venous pressure will build up in the veins. So when this venous pressure is more, again your hydrostatic pressure will be more, and the fluid will be leaking out into the interstitial spaces. So for the fluid to get maintained, two pressures are important. Hydrostatic pressure. This will always, when the hydrostatic pressure is more, it will favor filtration. Whereas colloidal osmotic pressure, that is the pressure given by the plasma proteins. Colloidal osmotic pressure favors the absorption. Hydrostatic pressure favors the filtration. Colloidal osmotic pressure due to plasma proteins, that is called oncotic pressure, that favors the absorption. When there is imbalance between these two, also a lot of fluid will come into the interstitial spaces. So incompetent venous valves, localized blood vessel blockage. Some veins are blocked, you think. So it is not able to get the fluid. It will be all coming into the spaces. Localized blood vessel blockage or congestive heart failure. What is congestive heart failure? Your heart is not able to pump out the blood. So lot of your right ventricle has failed. So it is not able to pump the blood. So all will be, there will be backing of the blood in the veins. So when the heart is weak, when it is not able to pump out, there will be lot of pressure on the veins. Back pressure will be there. So all this back pressure will lead to edema. So on the dependent parts of the body, all that pressure will be built up on the dependent, and that will give rise to edema. So edema, that is in congestive heart failure. Hypertension, blood pressure, I have already told you. When the pressure is more, hypertension, hydrostatic pressure will be very more and fully filtrating the fluid. High blood volume. High blood volume, when you are taking your normal saline, lot of water, increased IV fluids have been given. So that will increase your blood volume. When increase the blood volume also, it will favor filtration. Okay. So hindered fluid return usually reflects an imbalance in colloidal osmotic pressure. So I told you, when there is colloidal osmotic pressure is less, when the proteins are not there in the vascular system, proteins are coming into, it's all getting filtered, means lot of fluid also gets filtered out, because colloidal osmotic pressure favors absorption, and that is mainly because of your plasma proteins. When the plasma proteins are not there in your vascular system, in your blood vessels, means that also favors filtration. Okay. Hypoproteinemia, same thing. When the proteins are not there. Nephrotic syndrome, you think. Lot of proteins are lost in the urine. So when the lot of proteins are lost, your vascular system, your capillaries will not have that much of proteins. When the proteins are not there, it will not maintain the colloidal osmotic pressure. So fluid will be filtering. There should be a fine balance between absorption and filtration. If that is hampered, lot of fluid will come into your interstitial spaces. That will give rise to edema. I think that's it. So hope you understood. Here, what you should remember is 60% of our body weight is the water, and it is divided into intracellular and extracellular. Extracellular has again got 3 compartments: plasma, interstitial fluid, and your transcellular fluid. Plasma is about 25%, the other 2 are about 75%. Okay, and how we are measuring the body fluids. So suitable dyes should be given, and that formula you should remember. These are called dye dilution techniques, and how you measure the body fluids. Okay, and if the body fluid is staying in the same compartment or it is getting excreted, 2 formulas are there: V is equal to A by C, or if it is getting excreted, V is equal to A minus E by C. Hope I am clear. So this is about your body fluids. Thank you. ఇక్కడ జస్ట్